And I'm going to start the summary this time. Okay, cool. Well, I don't have a ton of big overall announcements this week. Tuesday to Thursday is the NASA SMD software workshop. So if you're attending that, don't forget, I'm flying out there for that today. Our summer school is coming up. Registration is now closed, technically. If there's someone who's near and dear to the community that just messed up and forgot to register, send me a DM. I'll see about getting you in. Sean, do you have any overall announcements?
I want to add on to the summer school that our official registration numbers were impressive because you didn't announce them. What, there
Yeah,
were
true.
over 400 registered and about 80 in person, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. So that's pretty awesome. And I guess only other news I can think of is, our FEP1 passed recently. And me and John Niehoff are working on getting that up on the website and getting it all merged and official and stuff. But some stuff with the summer school is apparently happening first. So it's not up there yet, but it is passed and it is there on GitHub. But stay tuned for announcements on the website and such.
We had a FEP2 in process, didn't we?
FEP2 is technically just the template for FEP1, I believe, but yes, it exists as well. So
Okay.
it'll
wondering.
get at the same time.
Okay. That makes sense. I was wondering if it needed like a separate vote on it too, or
Don't think so.
cool, cool.
But I'll now that I'm saying that though, I need to go double check.
Yeah, keep us posted. I was curious just because it wasn't a usual kind of FEP that we might expect.
Hmm.
All right. Well, that should wrap up our overall stuff from leadership. Alex, whenever you're ready.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay, assume everybody can see those slides.
Sure can.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, let me start off by saying thank you for having me today. My name's Alex Kufos. I'm a research software engineer at Stanford, working with the JSOC and the SDO data and operations. Also a steering committee member and DEI or Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Working Group Chair at the USRSC. And today I'm going to be focusing on talking about what the USRSC is, which is the United States Research Software Engineer Association. Feel free to interrupt me at any point if you have any questions. And I'm happy to chat afterwards. And so feel free to reach out as well. And I'll have my information at the end of the talk as well if you would like to reach out. So what I'll be talking about today is just three main sections, just an overview of what is a research software engineer, what is the USRSC, some motivation for why we need groups like this, and what the USRSC does, and then just wrapping it up with some final points. So what is a research software engineer? Well, the term is relatively new. It started around 2014 in the UK. What it is exactly what you kind of expect. It's just software engineers who are focused on research problems. And RSCs are in institutions all around the world, although the roles are generally not explicitly defined as such. In other words, individuals are considered either software engineers specifically or researchers and scientists. Therefore, the performances are generally tied with either software engineering standards, which I'm sure those who are in academia realize are generally lacking, and if you're in the science kind of track, generally paper publications. And so research software engineers, they might do things such as like help optimize software, find better ways to test and validate existing and new codes, design complex code bases for researchers, such as SunPy, act as subject matter experts for software development, and a whole host of other things. The USRSC, so what is it? Well, it's approximately 6 years old at this point. It started by a small collection of RSCs from around the country. They saw what was going on in the UK. And as I mentioned, the term for RSCs, or research software engineers, started in 2014. We're a nonprofit, community-driven grassroots organization with members ranging from those who write and contribute research software at universities, labs, knowledge institutions, industry, and more. Those who are interested in research software engineering careers, such as students, scientists, and software engineers, and others, and also those who identify as RSC allies. So what I mean kind of by that are those who like generally manage, sponsor, and support research software engineers, or just scientists who might not be doing more of the coding, but are, you know, really supportive of this idea. And, you know, anybody else who just feels like this is a good thing to do and would like to support. So as an example, I'm currently working, so although my term is technically a software developer at Stanford, my role there, and I consider myself a research software engineer since I'm working on, like right now, I'm specifically working on helping move the JSOC over to Git from CVS, and actually getting people to start using version control, which we weren't really doing much of, even though we have CVS, creating tests for our current code base, improving our database system, and a host of other things that I think will be helpful for getting scientific research done. And maybe some of you could consider yourselves RSCs as well, such as those who are working on software research tools like SunPy, or I saw Nick was here, so PlasmaPy and other things. The USRC's mission is pretty straightforward. We have 4 main goals. I won't read these directly, but a community, or focus around community on professional development, with knowledge sharing, connections, and resources for members, advocacy to promote the importance of research software engineering and the role, resources for research software engineers and just researchers in general, including a lot of like best practices, things, and how to get started. And then making sure that diversity, equity, inclusion is a specific focus for our community. Our members, as I mentioned, are worldwide. So here's just a quick snapshot of where our members more or less lie at the moment. As you can see, mainly focused in the US, but all over the world. And if we dig a little bit deeper into the US, we're spread out all over the place, but with several pockets in like the Northeast, the Midwest, the California or West Coast area. And there's a lot of people in the Colorado Front Range area as well, which I'll come back to at a later point, since I know several of you are around there. So why are these roles important to begin with? Well, to start, let me just quote one of PyHC's strategic goals, which is to promote scientific responsibility and software sustainability. So I likely don't need to tell you all this, but let me mention one study, although there are others who have found very similar results, that over 50% of surveyed researchers were unable to reproduce their own research, with more than 70% unable to reproduce others' work. And those numbers were specifically in the physics and engineering space, for the researchers or physics and engineering for what they quoted in this study. But the numbers were pretty consistent throughout the entire collection of researchers that they interviewed, which was over 1,500. And this concept is now known as kind of the reproducibility crisis in the sciences. And I'll be talking more about this directly during the PyHC summer school in a couple of weeks, but just wanted to, again, give some motivation now for why these roles in this group is important. And, also PyHC is doing very similar things. So it's also extremely important with making sure that this gets addressed. So here I'm just listing a couple of things that we're doing prominently at the USRSC. So we provide our community and the general public a website where you can find most of our information, including the resources that I've been kind of alluding to, potential job postings for those who are looking for new jobs or would like a more research software engineer specific role, some blog posts where we talk about various things in tech and in science, a monthly newsletter where we talk about what's been happening that month. We have a very active Slack community of generally over 2,000 members with channels and discussions about topics ranging from like software best practices, such as code reviews, user experience, et cetera. Some more social topics such as diversity, equity, inclusion. We have a little food channel where people post delicious food that they've made or just enjoy. And if you have pets, we also have a pets channel where we just talk about our cats and dogs and other animals that we have. Just whatever crazy antics they're running into, which I'm a little bit surprised my cat's not sitting on my table right now, but I guess she was bored of me talking. And then we have also another kind of like recap of the job board on the website as well, or sorry, on the Slack channels as well, where members in their institutions can post these job openings. And people are generally very responsive and very quick to do so. So there's also, I didn't mention, but a Python specific channel, and whenever somebody has a question in there, it's like almost instantaneously you get a good conversation about like why some best practice or what is a good choice for some sort of tool that you would want to use for handling your Python questions. We also have a social media presence, although I'm a little bit less up to date on that stuff just because I don't tend to stick to it. But we are on LinkedIn and Twitter and Mastodon, and don't think we have Facebook, but we might even. And we also have a YouTube channel where a good chunk of the material is actually some of like the community calls, which we don't publicly host for everybody to see, but if you're a member, you have access to those. And we also have a lot of public facing materials as well, though, some which are like talking about broadening, and we're talking about broadening this for with doing some short videos about research software engineering concepts. This is something I'm thinking will probably be happening sometime by the end of this year. And we also host a lot of events ranging from monthly community calls, like I just mentioned, where we discuss various topics. And as Julie was asking about a little bit earlier, we have one coming up this Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time about open source program offices. And I was just trying to read the definition of this, and it kind of seems like PyHC might very much be what they mean by this concept, but we'll be talking about it. And the way that the community calls usually work is there's a short, like 15 to 20-minute presentation or presentations on the topic itself. Then we go into breakout rooms and talk about what we've taken away from that and what we know about from our own experiences previously, and then come back and kind of recap. And they can be very effective for learning new topics, or just learning something new about, like we had one on code review, and just some things that you might learn from that. We also have annual conferences now. The first one started last year in Chicago, and this year we will be having it in Albuquerque, New Mexico, right after the balloon festival that's there. So if you come early, you can enjoy the balloon festival and then go to the conference. And we do several speaker series, including a funder series where we talk about ways to get money for research software engineering work, DEI speaker series ranging from various topics around DEI and tech and research, tech and science, and then education and training speaker focused, or focused on like education around research software engineering. We also have a DEI media club where we listen, read, watch some media focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and STEM, and discuss that as a group. And we have been participating in panels at various conferences, various software engineering oriented conferences mostly. I'm hoping that soon we'll do some more science focused ones, and specifically I'm hoping that we can have a presence at AGU this year to make it more aware to not only our group of cohorts, but also more the Earth side cohorts. And yeah, and here I'm just talking, or I have some pictures from various things. The upper right one is from the conference last year. So we had a pretty big turnout. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think it was like 330 or so. In the bottom left is just one of the panels that we were on, that people were at for the supercomputing conference in 2023. And one of the podcasts that the DEI speaker series hosted was about making scientific Python more accessible with comics, which was a very interesting discussion. And for this one, I apologize for the wordy slide, but promise I won't run through the whole thing. I just wanted to mention that we have several working groups focused on issues around diversity, equity, inclusion, some one on code review, an education and public outreach or education and training one that's focused on user experience and user interface. That's relatively new, and a very important piece of software. And then we also have been starting up affinity groups. So the main difference between a working group and an affinity group is working groups are trying to like specifically tackle some thing or working on some tasks, whereas affinity groups are more about those who are just like around the same idea, just want to kind of come together and chat. One more recent one that we've had come up is neurodiversity in STEM. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that we have some regional groups. And as I alluded to earlier, we do have one that's specifically in the what we call the Front Range, Colorado area. So there's tons of people there from Golden at NREL, several people from Boulder. We have, those at LASP, at CUSP, at CU, just a ton of people around that area. So for those who are in the area, you might be interested in trying to see what the regional groups are specifically up to. And then just to mention, I'll go through these quick, but there's just the next 3 slides are just some resources that specifically came out of having the USRC. So one of them being about like why it's important and how to hire and manage and maintain data scientists and research software engineers in academia. There's also one that recently came out about creating a career path for research software engineering. And another one that also came out relatively recently about how you can get started with this research software engineering movement, and more as an individual rather than needing to find a ton of people to get things moving. And so pretty quick, but the last thing is, so what can we do now? Well, hopefully I've already convinced you the importance that the USRSC can play on helping our field. But just in case, I'm including here that the USRSC right now is entirely free to join for individuals. Since we're a nonprofit, we are thinking about ways to get some institutional funding, but the plan is to have membership for individuals be free indefinitely. We're always building our community, and as you can see, it's growing pretty rapidly. I'm personally trying to get a little bit more of the physics and heliophysics oriented folks to help promoting RSC or research software engineering within our field. And several of our members actually have already written white papers on the importance of research software engineering practices in heliophysics and astrophysics. I think there's like 1 or 2 in the decadal survey, and I've mentioned it in a paper that I was on. And then the USRSC could help provide an avenue to continue your strategic goals, like the one that I had mentioned earlier, and others. And we work with we want to try to find ways that we can help you, and that you can potentially help us. And with that, are there any questions? Trying to keep it pretty short, since I'm not sure how much everybody wants to stay here for a prolonged period of time today.
No, thank you.
I had Sean, did you have a question?
I did actually.
Okay, go ahead. I'll
Yeah.
wait.
I was curious, two quick things was how big is like your leadership group, if you have that sort of thing? Because
Yes.
with PyHC, it's mainly like me and Julie sort of setting up meetings and stuff like that. Then everything's really grassroots. Other than that, do you all have kind of like a government, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I didn't explicitly say what the steering committee is, but that is more or less our leadership. So the steering committee consists of 9 people, which has a kind of like a rolling system. So about half of them will it's a 2-year roll, where half of them would be leaving 1 year and a new cohort potentially would be coming in. The USRC right now is entirely volunteer, with the exception that this is very recent, just the beginning of this year. We do now have 2 paid positions, one a full-time community manager, who's been helping us kind of build out our membership a little bit more specifically, and helping like make the membership model a little bit better, and then a part-time executive director. So again, those are 2 completely new things, and I didn't include this in my slides, or at least I wasn't sharing them, but I can bring up real quick that So now since I mentioned we were a nonprofit, we decided to partner with community initiatives to help with getting funds to kind of, get this going and such. And we also have a very a good relationship with Alfred P. Sloan, who's also dedicated a lot of money. And I think they are the ones who are explicitly helping pay for this executive director and community manager position. Yeah, so they're yeah, and to kind of get back to your original question. So there's 9 of us on the steering committee that kind of, we meet bi-weekly. We talk about things that we would like to do for the USRC, and we try to figure out, what our priorities should be for that year. So we also have like a strategic planning meeting at the beginning of every year to kind of get the new people in and steer the direction.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah.
If I can ask one more quick question before I let anyone else have a turn at that. Just real quick, how do you define membership? Because obviously you have like nice graphs of how many members you have and stuff like that. Is that a formal sign up process?
Yeah, so it's very simple. You just, click on this page, you get brought to a Google form, and you just put in some information. And really only 2 things that you need, or I guess 3, are your first and last name, your email that you would like for communications, and why you are joining. This might change a little bit just in terms of what questions we're asking, since we're trying to get gather better metrics, because they're important for trying to understand not only where we're going, but kind of how we got there, and making sure we're hitting some of the more generally missed demographics. So, but yeah, super simple. Just click on that, fill out the form, and should be by like the end of the day, you're a member. So very
Cool.
easy.
Thank you for showing me how that works.
Yeah.
How is your leadership board voted on?
So yeah, sorry. At the end of the year, I think around October, November timeframe, we'll have an announcement for for people to nominate, or to nominate themselves, or to be nominated to be part of the steering committee. If you're nominated by somebody else, then the election board will reach out to you, which is actually, I'll be on that this year just because it's a steering committee role. So it's, I think, 2 or a couple of us who will just be kind of going over the election process, sending out the emails, all this stuff. There isn't actually a specific elections page, if I can find it real quick, where we talk about like what you have to do to become a steering committee member, but simple enough. It's ranked choice voting. So you'll nominate, you'll do a short little video about why you want to be on the steering committee, and a short little statement, both not very long at all. I think we could do like 2 minutes or something. It was pretty short, just because we do them generally at the start of one of the community calls towards the end. People will then vote, rate choice. They have about a month to do so, and then at the end of that, we'll announce who was elected. So yeah, pretty straightforward. And the ranked choice voting thing's kind of cool, because you get to potentially pick people that you might not think have as much of a chance, but they tend to be able to do better with that.
Gotcha. And then the other question I had, I forget what you called them exactly, regional groups, or where you had the New England Front Range areas. How do you join those?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any formal process for that. I mean, there might be. Since we don't have one for California / the Bay Area, one. I haven't really looked into these too much, although I was talking about, how it would be nice to have one, because I did find out we have like 60 plus people just at Stanford, and I don't know like half of them just because we just haven't had a chance to really to get together. And I think a lot of us, as I was mentioning earlier, I'm technically a software developer, so there's no official research software engineer role at Stanford. So I think a lot of us don't even realize that, we're all doing similar work, just in different areas. But that being said, we have one for affinity groups and working groups. I don't see anything about the regional groups at the moment.
Okay.
As I mentioned, we're still kind of starting out. So 6 years is a good amount of time, but still, we're still trying to work on processes and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was all the questions I had, but it sounds like you should maybe start the California group. Nick, you had your camera flipped on. Do you have a question?
A thought. So one of the needs that we have in PyHC is a venue where we can learn like advanced Python or like level up our research software engineering skills.
Mhm.
And the education and training working group within USRSC is one possible area where we can help fill that need.
Right.
So trainings on things like software testing and then containerization and I forget what else, a bunch of things. Also, hi, glad to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah, so we are starting up a lot more of these working groups that are focused on specific, probably a little bit more specific areas of research software engineering, or even just software engineering best practices and stuff. So I mentioned the code review working group, where we are trying to come up with a more kind of streamlined set of resources and guides for how one would approach code review, since that can be a really big and important part in making sure that your software is robust and well written, and just all the things that make for good reproducible software. The UI UX group is also relatively new, where they're trying to tackle, again, kind of these resources and guides that you would want to do for if you're working with anything with a UI. The education and training group is also focusing on trying to do more specific training avenues for research software engineers or anybody who's interested. There is actually what you might want to look into, and let me see if I can find it real quick. It's called the Intersect program, which I believe is hosted at Princeton every year. Yeah, just intersecttraining.org. That is a specific boot camp and workshops on research software engineering. So that could be a really good avenue to learn about more of these advanced things, and kind of get hit the ground running once you get back, because you'll have a lot of hands-on opportunity. And just point out real quick that the guy in the middle panel here in the right is Ian Cosden. He's one of the co-founders of the USRC and has been a steering committee member the whole time, because he just absolutely loves doing this work and has helped make the USRC what it is. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Cool. I see that Nabil asked a question about if there's plans to survey the USRC member or the RSC members. Yes. So quick answer is yes, we are. This was actually one of the main things that we kind of focused on during the strategic planning mission, or sorry, strategic planning meeting that we had at the as the steering committee members at the beginning of the year. This is something that we think would be really beneficial. We're trying to figure out what's the best way to do that. The community manager is helping us with this as well, trying to figure out good ways to have this handled. There's some talks about so there's an international RSC survey that comes out every 2 years, or at least traditionally, but generally it's run by one person. So we're trying to see how we can potentially leverage that as a way to track some of our metrics and be a little bit more specific for what we need. But we were thinking about having something a little bit more annual as well to get a little bit better of an idea of what people's needs are. So like exactly what Nick was just mentioning about, well, we'd love to have more advanced Python training. So if that's something that we want to see from the working groups, that's something that we would like to, to try to track as often as possible, right? While also not being overburdening people with surveys every week or something. So so we're hoping that maybe an annual survey will help track some of these initiatives that we should focus on.
Any other questions for Alex? Go ahead, Angeline.
I think yours. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just trying to come online here. So I arrived late, so I apologize if I'm asking something that you've already answered, but I've been looking over your website. Are you involved in any sort of advocacy, either with the government or institutions or funding agencies that would help research software people be more recognized, have better funding? I know that in our own narrow field, like NASA's only just recently started offering funding for software projects, and it's so small a pot of funding that it's not even enough to really fully support anything yet. So yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Actually, this was one of the things I said when I was running for steering committee that I wanted to focus on trying to find ways to advocate in a more broader sense. I don't think we have like let's say for example like the SPD, right, the Solar Physics Division of the AAS. They explicitly have I think it's considered a working group on advocacy towards going and reaching out to members of Congress and such. We don't have something like that directly at the moment. However, we have been trying to advocate in a lot of different ways. One through these white papers that maybe you heard me mentioned that we've been people have been working on. Some of them were in the decadal survey for heliophysics, so hopefully they'll take note of that. Our executive director is trying to get more funding and more connections with the institutions and stuff, like NSF in a lot of the different fields and so forth. So I think one of the great things about what the USRSC can help do is this advocacy, and to a larger extent, right? Like as PyHC or SPD or anybody who's working on this stuff, but doing it only at the heliophysics level is probably not going to get as much traction as if we have a larger organization that's not only focused on the physics stuff, but is focused on biology and chemistry and sociology and psychology and all the different research that's being done throughout the United States, with the support from research software engineers. I think it will have a much bigger impact on that intent. And just to allude to my talk that I was planning, or that I'm going to be giving in 2 weeks at the summer school, one of the things that I noted was that this reproducibility crisis that exists, that I did mention earlier, the Congress actually did explicitly take note of that and tasked the Academy of Sciences and Engineering to come up with a committee to look at that problem more directly and to report back to Congress. So there is a large paper on this idea of computational reproducibility and the need for this type of work. So I think we can definitely leverage that as well to help to help push this need and this crucial part of the system that obviously seems to be missing, because as you mentioned, it's very little funding at the moment for specifically tackling these issues. And in proposals, it's not even something that you generally have to write about a lot of times, but I think it should be, because it should be something that's explicitly mentioned so that you have an idea of what they're going to do and making sure that they have the support to do it.
Thanks.
Okay. Sorry, a little long-winded of an answer, but hopefully it addressed everything.
I thought it was really interesting. Any other questions for Alex?
And again, feel free to reach out at any point. Again, I'll leave up this this slide just so you have it. But yeah, probably I generally respond on Slack a lot better. So if you join the USRC, that will be the quickest way. Emails tend to get lost just because, who knows, you get 50 in 10 minutes just for something that you don't even care about. So.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Alex. And I'm really looking forward to your talk at the summer school and seeing you out there in person. So if
Yeah,
you come to meet Alex.
thank you. All right,
Cool.
thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I forget exactly the next day for our next meeting, if it's in the north